The ABB FIA Formula E World Championship gets ready for Sunday in Monaco. Welcome to Free Practice 3, and the 40-minute session is about to get underway for the drivers to head out to the circuit and get their cars set up ready for this race day. Let's cross over to the world feed then and join our commentators ready for all of the action.
Pole position after clattering into the wall on arguably his most important lap of the weekend yesterday. Started second, but managed to get himself into first when it counted for the checkered flag yesterday.
Let's not forget, he could have very well won the first race of the season as well, so he could have had 4 wins if he had not had an issue at the start with his Nissan car.
34 points to the lead in the championship. At this stage in the season, Katie, we've only done 6 rounds. We're not even at the halfway stage of it. It's an amazing lead he's got.
He is definitely in the flow of it, and also it was extended obviously because of the second and third, obviously Pascal and Antonio not having the best results yesterday, so he's extended his driver's lead even further.
Green light is on then. The third free practice session of the weekend gets underway. 40 minutes long, so the longest session that we've had in terms of free practice so far this weekend. Yesterday we had 2 30-minute sessions. Such are the time constraints that we have here at this Monaco circuit, and you can see them queuing up to get out of the pit lane and head out onto the track here.
The cars all look immaculate. I have to say, after yesterday's race, I saw rather a lot of damage on a lot of the nose cones. They all look like they've been repaired perfectly overnight.
It looks a bit like robot wars yesterday at the end of the race, didn't it? There were a few drivers who ended up in the wars, including, of course, Antonio Felix da Costa, who we saw trying to do a 3-into-1 overtake into Anthony Noakes. It wasn't a move that paid off. Ultimately, it ended the Portuguese driver's race and cost him second in the championship to teammate Pascal Wehrlein. So drivers heading out onto the track there. This is Mitch Evans for Jaguar TCS Racing. He was a winner here 12 months ago, bringing home Jaguar's 1-2. But, well, they haven't really been at the races so far this weekend, have they?
They haven't. Yeah, obviously, I think having practice yesterday.
Oh, copy, we scrub while... No. We scrub, but we keep them... we let them cool a bit, which is going to be good. And then we do the out push.
Is that Lucas engineering his own car?
Certainly sounds like it.
He's got enough experience too, though, really.
Very, very good point.
So he's talking about scrubbing there. I assume that means he's going to scrub a new set of tyres.
Yeah. Well, it is. They all talk about how difficult it is to get tyres into the window for Formula E qualifying. So I'm assuming that they're, you know, slightly different temperatures today. Maybe they're thinking there's going to be some rain, so it could be a bit of a different strategy, a different window.
Yeah, so the scrubbing that he's talking about, what he means is that the surface of the tyre when it's brand new is very shiny and very smooth. What he wants to do is scrub that, so roughing it up a little bit. That means that the tyre will then bite into the asphalt a bit more, and then you can get a little bit more temperature later on in the session when he needs it.
Speaking of temperature, we saw drivers really having to push on in qualifying in particular yesterday. Normally, in the group stages in particular, you see sort of 2 runs. The drivers will go out, they'll do a few laps, do a run, come back in, change over to another set of tyres, and then go and do another run at the end of the session, and there are continual improvements. However, this weekend, what we saw were drivers going out on track and then staying out for the entirety of the session.
So the reason for that is the circuit is so smooth. Here in Monaco, they resurface the track every year. Almost 90% of the circuit is new every year, and it's super smooth. They use very high quality tarmac. So yeah, I'm not surprised that they're struggling to get so much temperature into the tyres. And also today is going to be a little bit cooler than yesterday, so it could be an even bigger effect.
Yeah, Sandberg saying on team radio that his tyres have not come up to temperature at the moment, so a bit more work for him to do. It's interesting actually because especially in the dual stages, I know we've got more power and 4-wheel drive, but there were incredibly quick outlaps yesterday in that session. In the duals, if you don't know, if you're new to Formula E, you get 1 outlap, 1 flying lap, and then 1 in-lap. So you've got to make sure those tyres are in the right operating window. So they were pushing on quite a bit faster than we would have seen perhaps at other circuits and in different circumstances in qualifying for round 6.
Is Antonio feeling out his new car after he had the front right corner replaced?
I was wondering actually, do you think they'll have had to look at drive shafts, if not powertrain maybe, on the front end? Because it was a hefty whack he took into the wall.
I think they have to look at everything when you have an impact like that. I mean, it basically ripped the front right corner off the car. So yeah, I think the angle that he hit it in, it probably didn't do any damage to the FPK, the front powertrain itself, because it just pulled the whole front wheel off.
Yeah, good points. We'll see what Da Costa is going to be able to do. Katie, from a driver's perspective, when you had a difficult race like that, I mean, let's be fair, Da Costa wasn't really anywhere in terms of pace yesterday. How do you regroup and go again?
Well, I think double headers that's what it's for. The worst thing is when you've had a bad Saturday and then you've got to wait 2 months before you go racing again. You feel incredibly frustrated and you always feel like you have more to give, as we know he does. So I think, you know, he's won here in the past, he knows how to drive on this circuit, and he's probably going to have at least had some time to analyse yesterday and what went wrong and where he can find more pace to come back fighting today. But as you say, from having practice yesterday and then not having the practice on the Friday, they don't have that overnight to digest their pace and to really look through things. So if you're struggling in the morning sessions and then you don't qualify through to the duels, obviously it massively affects your weekend.
You're just chasing his tail all day, aren't you?
And that's what happened to him yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it's a very good point there. So we'll see what Da Costa and indeed Porsche are going to be able to do. Pascal Wehrlein eventually came home 6th place in the sole Tag Heuer Porsche at the end of that race. So again, not a particularly brilliant result for him. It was enough, though, to leapfrog Da Costa for 2nd in the Drivers' Championship. Roland, as we said, now has the 34-point lead. Wehrlein in 2nd, 6 points ahead of Da Costa, who, of course, was a non-score. One of the big talking points from yesterday was Nick de Vries, who's just popped himself up into 2nd in the Mahindra. His first podium since London 2022. Mahindra's first since Mexico 2023. Amazing result for that team.
Huge result for that team. I mean, to have both cars in the top 4, they were looking very competitive in the race, actually. Probably the most competitive team in the race, other than Roland himself. So, yeah, I think that's going to give them a huge amount of confidence, all of the team. I know they've been working very, very hard behind the scenes. It's going to be interesting to see if they can repeat the performance today.
It certainly will, yeah. We have seen this, though, in Formula E, where we have these double-header weekends. The classic example is Jake Dennis when we were in Diriyah last year. Went and won the race in commanding style on the Friday. On the Saturday, he was nowhere.
Yeah, we've seen it plenty of times before. It's hugely challenging, and with Formula E, it's so important your qualifying, your balance, all the tiny little details that go into putting together the group phase and the dual phase. They make such a big impact over your whole result at the end of the day.
We're just hearing from our reporters on the ground that it is raining in the pit lane at the moment. So, well, that will change the complexion of this session. Hopefully, it's not too big of a shower.
I can still hear that noise on the rear a little bit.
Well, even if he can. So just, by the way, this is in reference to Oliver Rowland. In the race yesterday, he came on the radio on the opening lap saying that he could hear a noise from the car. Obviously, he managed to go on and take the victory. It didn't affect him that much, but he can still hear it, apparently.
Yeah, so with these powertrains, when you take a knock into the wall, like what happened to Oliver in the final yesterday in qualifying, where he just got it wrong, braked too late going into turn 1, and he clattered into the outside barrier. He hit that rear left corner very hard, and that sends a shockwave through the powertrain. Yesterday in the race, you could hear it. We rode on board with him. You could hear it clicking away. And if he still got it today, a little bit concerning for him, although he did win the race with that noise yesterday.
Yeah, we're on board here with Oliver Rowland as he comes through in towards the swimming pool. So this is where we're hearing that there are some spots of rain on the circuit. We're going to think that Ollie is going to start pushing next lap. So times in qualifying were down into the mid-126s yesterday. In terms of the pole position lap times, actually significantly slower than the times we saw in the semi-finals, courtesy of the fact that Oliver Rowland biffed it into the wall here at Saint-Devote. And he's gone on down on his first push lap here as well. So
that could be the rain.
It possibly could be, yeah. Not the first driver we've seen go off there at the first turn, and I'm sure not the last here this weekend.
You know, what he just did to avoid the wall is much more difficult than you would imagine, because normally you're taking so much speed at that apex, you'd end up in the wall. So how he managed to do that and flick the car around, do his little donut, that's actually very, very impressive.
To be fair, he was going into the first corner yesterday at such a rate of knots. I'm surprised he didn't end up in someone's front room.
Maybe you learned from that experience yesterday then to how to avoid it with this one. You'd have done a quicker lap, actually.
Well, let's go down to Saunders, who's in pit lane. He is with Nissan team principal Tommaso Volpe, of course, fresh off the back of their victory yesterday, as we look at Rowland just going and pushing the limits down at the first corner, off to the escape road, thankfully, not coming to too much bother. Saunders, you're down in pit lane.
Thank you very much, Tom. Yes, Tommaso, Oliver doing exactly what he wanted him to do straight away, extending that lead at the top of the championship with another win. Is it possible to do it again today?
Hopefully. No, joking apart, I'm sure that everybody wants to win today as well. So what I can say is that yesterday was much more complex to manage the race with the pit boost. Today we go back to a more traditional race. So we will try to be as strong as yesterday.
So noticed from Oliver yesterday talking about almost like he didn't have the pace he wanted in the car at the start of the session, seemingly didn't make a problem when it came to winning the race, but then hearing him on the radio that he's still got that same noise that we're hearing.
Yeah, we actually changed the parts, and I cannot say more, but yeah, we are surprised that he's complaining about the same noise. So of course we will check the car at the end of the session. No point to check it during the session, and we'll see. But it's strange, to be honest.
Few spots of rain in the air as well, and we're not sure about how far this will continue into the day, but if there's one thing that we know for sure is Oliver Rowland likes a wet race.
He does, we don't. Yeah, for sure, with the rain, the driver's skills come more, they can make even more a difference. So top drivers like Oliver can make even more a difference. But to be honest, we prefer not to have, also for the race, to avoid accident. And yeah.
Thanks, Tommaso.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tommaso. Thank you to Saunders in pit lane there as well. So confidence inspiring for the Nissan team. They sit second in the team's championship as well. Now just 9 points adrift of Tag Heuer Porsche. I have to say, a team that would have been expecting more from yesterday are DS Penske, as we just saw John-Eric Byrne going through the final series of corners there. At the checkered flag, Maximilian Günther was classified in 10th place. Byrne, where did he come over the line? Just trying to find it on the result sheet. He was 12th. So outside of the points positions. What do you think it is that means they're not maximising their potential? Because we know that car's got pace. We've seen it this year.
So I had a chat with them both yesterday, and it just seemed like they don't have any balance. They don't have the confidence to turn into the corner. As soon as they start turning in, they feel a little bit nervous. Then they can't commit to the corner properly. And if they can get that under control, they'll find the pace. But at the moment, their car balance seems a little bit difficult.
Well, one of the big talking points from the race yesterday was Nico Müller in the Andretti. Put in an amazing performance. Was very fortunate to time his pit boost stop with the full course yellow, which came out courtesy of an on-track incident. However, due to technical problems, he wasn't actually able to take his charge. Essentially, what happens, you go into the pit lane, you plug in, and he didn't get the full 10% worth of energy as he should have done. It's a recognised issue. It's been solved and it won't be happening again, as we understand it. But it compromised his race because it sent everything else out of sync, didn't it?
Well, it may have compromised the race, but it's incredibly lucky to be in the pits at that moment in the race anyway, and that was due to the fact that he had spent more energy than the others at the beginning of the race, and so yeah, there was a few different circumstances that led to that one, but it certainly wasn't what we expect from him.
Well, he gained about 30 seconds, didn't he, as a result of pitting at that time with the full course yellow. So, you know, very, very lucky. If he had gone on to win the race, I'd have been straight off to the off licence to buy a lottery ticket on the way home, to be honest.
For you to take a Nico there to buy it.
Well, exactly.
Maybe he's got the same luck as Lando Norris this weekend.
Well, yeah, potentially so. On board with Mitch Evans through that first corner. As we look inside the Jaguar TCS Racing Garage, Cassidy's just up into 4th position as well. See what he is going to be able to do. Here is Nico Müller as we look at him making his way through the final series of corners. Jake Dennis also on a fast lap here as well for the Andretti team. So Nico Müller then comes across the line. He goes up into 7th quickest. What about Jake Dennis? He goes to the top of the pile. Very handy lap time there for him.
Everyone.
So what we're seeing...
Full course yellow in 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow. Full course yellow.
So full course yellow there. Normally this is just a test, and I believe that is the same set of circumstances we've got here. Normally it's a bit earlier on in the session actually than this.
So normally you only do it in FP1 and it's within the first 5 minutes of the session. Now the reason for that is for race control to test it. This
full course yellow
someone's
empty.
front wing.
5,
Yeah, Frights by the
4,
looks of things.
3, 2, 1.
Oh. So that is Zane Maloney clattering into the back of Robin Frights on the exit of the swimming pool.
But that's very naughty from Robin Frights or his team not informing him that there's a very fast driver coming. You cannot see in these cars here, and that's just, yeah, that's not on.
Yeah, can't be cruising on the racing line like that, especially when you've got a faster driver coming up behind you. Gives a wave to apologise, but I think the stewards are going to be having a closer look at that, and Zane Maloney, understandably, aggravated by that. Now back in the pit lane.
It's dangerous driving. You cannot drive slowly on the racing line on a street circuit, completely out of order.
Well, we'll see what happens there.
I got no information that the grassy was coming flat out.
Sorry, I don't.
He hit me in the back.
So conversation there between Ben Scott, his race engineer, and Robin in the car.
Yeah, clearly Robin expecting more information from the team. So, I mean, it's difficult, but still, if you're driving slowly and you know that you're not going to push, you should be off the racing line.
Big snap of oversteer on the exit of Casino Square as we ride on board with Lucas de Grassi there, Katie.
Yeah, it was the same yesterday. I remember we watched a video and the rear looks like it's doing its own thing. They weren't there either on the timing board yesterday in qualifying, so I think that they have been struggling this weekend. Also, they finished the race with a lot more energy than everyone else. I don't know if you noticed that as well.
I have to say there was so much going on. I was busy focusing on things at the front end of the race. But yeah, they haven't had the pace. They have been sort of all at sea. We are seeing drivers now on full attack mode laps. You can see that indicated by one, the increase in pace, and two, the purple lights on the back of the car, which includes the driver we're looking at here, Antonio Felix da Costa, who's going down into the chicane. No surprise at all, just popped up on our timing screen. Maloney and Freitz under investigation for that collision through the swimming pool. So we'll keep you updated with that possible grid penalty or other sanction coming along the way for Robin Freitz as we head into the round 7 set of qualifying and the race later on this afternoon.
So we're seeing some very fast sectors from Nick Cassidy here. We're watching Antonio Felix da Costa just finish his lap, where he finished in the wall in the race yesterday. But Nick Cassidy is absolutely flying out there.
Yeah, it's good to see for Nick Cassidy as well. It has not been a brilliant start to the season as Da Costa just pops himself up quickest of the lot. What about Cassidy as he comes to the timing line? Can he better it? Yes, he can, with a 1:26.9. That's a fast lap.
That's the fastest lap we've seen all weekend.
We were in the 26.4s in qualifying yesterday.
Yes,
in the dual stages for Tictum and Barnard, but for practice, definitely the quickest lap time that we have seen so far this weekend. So very, very handy bit of driving there for Nick Cassidy, and hopefully that form continues because he's only scored points once in season 11. Given where he was last year, went into the title fights.
Okay, so that's P1, 7/10 clear of Da Costa. It's purple, purple, purple.
And that'll be something for Nick Cassidy to smile about after, as we said, difficult start to his season. And I don't want to say that his championship challenge is off the rails, but it's a very uphill task given he's got 10 points and Roland at the sharp end has got 94. So we look here at Nick de Vries coming across the timing line in the Mahindra. Brilliant race, as we said, from him yesterday in that car onto the podium. On the converse, the two Maserati MSG machines, they were pretty much nowhere all weekend. I spoke to Jake Dennis on the grid before the start of the race, and he was alluding to the fact that he just didn't have the feeling under braking in the car at all. It's just everything he did, it would change almost on a corner-by-corner basis. So a driver that seemed to be lacking confidence, but also, he said, not knowing how to fix it, not knowing where to go and specifically what to change.
It's interesting here because I feel like we're getting more comments about setting the car up and the balance of these cars than we normally do, even at normal street circuits. It seems like, I don't know, James, in your experience driving here, is it quite, are you making a lot of compromises between the type of corners that you have and then obviously the trade-off for the faster sections?
I think it's something you and I spoke about earlier, is the fact that here you cannot go and test the limits of the braking because you've just got walls in front of you. The only real place where you can risk it is where you come out of the tunnel, and there you've got this downhill braking, a little crest. It doesn't really reflect how quickly you can stop the car. There's no other place on this circuit where you can push your braking point later and later and later until you go too late without hitting a wall. So I think it's very, very difficult to get that right. And if you don't have the confidence, it's difficult to take the last 1 or 2 meters on the brakes that will give you those 2/10 over the lap.
If I may correct myself, Jake Hughes, obviously, not Jake Dennis, as I said in the Maserati.
I know what you meant.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a long day. It's an early morning, isn't it? We just saw Robin Freitz coming to blows with Zane Maloney after Freitz was caught napping on the racing lines. One moment.
Yeah, I think that's good compared to where we were yesterday. I'm struggling a bit on grip, so I'm not sure about these tyres.
Everyone else might want his tyres.
Yeah, so that's good news there for Nick Cassidy, feeling a bit more confident with the car. But let's go down to Saunders, who's in pit lane, catching up with Envision team principal Sylvain Filippi.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, Sylvain, we saw that moment a little while ago with Robin Freitz and Zane Maloney. What can you tell us? What happened?
It's very strange. I could see it on my screen and all the engineers. That car did not exist on our GPS. We know GPS is patchy around here. but on our screens, which we can replay, that car did not exist, was not visible. So there was no way we could warn Robin because that car was not visible on any of our GPS. So yeah, it's really unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, but there's nothing else we could do, really, absolutely nothing.
So potentially a conversation with the stewards to come to argue your case.
Yeah, well, it's just a problem, right? Like around here, GPS can be a bit patchy, but that car was just not there on at all. So there's absolutely nothing our engineers could have done. It's a real shame, but.
Okay, so looking forward to today. Based on Robin's performance yesterday, what do you think you can learn from yesterday into today's race?
Well, yesterday our pace was actually okay in qualifying. We made a small mistake on Seb's car in a setup, so that compromised him a bit. But we saw in free practice and with Robin's quality that we have the pace. So it's about building on that, like all the other teams, and learning from yesterday and making small improvements for today. And then in a race, again, it's just so much bad luck that we need to get out of, you know, like all of our attack modes were compromised by full course yellow. So a bit like Miami again, like we don't get the advantage of our full course yellow and we don't make the progress we should make, which of course compromises your race. So we have to make sure our pace is good, and we need a clean race where we can actually make use of this, and then hopefully come out in a good way. So yeah, it's about like the hard work, getting the car in a good place, and then let's execute a race that is much cleaner.
Yeah, cleaner there, just to follow up from that. Robin mentioned to me at the end of the race yesterday that he thought there was some questionable driving standards on display. Hopefully that will improve today.
Yeah, for sure, a lot of aggressive driving. I mean, with the extra energy given by the pit boost yesterday, the target was higher, so we always knew it was going to be a fast race, where overtaking is more difficult. So today, it will still be a street track when it's not so easy, but a slightly more normal Formula E race where the energy target is a bit lower. So you would hope under attack mode for sure, some cleaner overtaking. But yeah, on the street track position is important, and it's always going to happen, right?
Thanks, Sylvain.
Thanks, Sylvain. Thank you to Saunders. So, GPS-related issue then, by the sounds of things there for Robin Price. The teams obviously do rely heavily on it, and I suppose you can't give information if you don't know that somebody's there on your GPS.
No, so a little bit of forgiveness there for them, but still, you shouldn't be driving on the racing line that slowly, especially in such a high-speed area of the track. So, yeah, I can understand on one hand, but also should know a little bit better with the experience that they've got. Now, one thing we did see a replay of was Taylor Barnard pushing the limits of the braking of his Neon McLaren. That was unbelievable how late he tried to brake and make it into that section.
Yeah, very impressive stuff there for Taylor Barnard. So just a bit of rear instability as he was a bit too late on the anchors going in towards the Nouvelle chicane.
I'm interested because he's not had the lap time deleted, but he did miss the first half of the chicane. Is that
Yeah.
allowed?
I think it did get deleted in the
Oh,
end.
did it get deleted?
But it was a very impressive lap from him. But he's clearly one that's comfortable with his braking points and is pushing the limit even further to make sure that he can try and get another pole position today.
Well, if there's any way you're going to push the limits, it's going to be in practice, isn't it? Because you've got the opportunity for a bit of forgiveness. Just looking at David Beckman's car here, he's on a push lap at the moment, a full attack mode lap, but looks like he was struggling with understeer over the course of that one. He comes across the line in 7th place, but the car just didn't look as compliant on the entry to the corner. DC in commentary yesterday was alluding to the fact that you need a strong front end on the car around here. He said you prefer a strong front end, and you know, if you're going to have a compromise, a slightly looser rear end.
Turn 10, end of brake, lost the rear, and also lost a bit the rear in 15.
And speaking of car balance there, Sebastian Buemi struggling with it in the Envision, but you can see he's now on a push lap. So look at that, he just had to take a couple of bites of the cherry going into Casino Square there, Katie.
Yeah.
He was really struggling yesterday with his car balance. He was not happy at all, and he doesn't look happy with this car balance like this. I mean, as we ride on board with him, you can see he's really fighting the car, and fighting the car just doesn't work around here. You have to be in harmony with it. As DC touched on yesterday, you need a good front end that you can turn into the corner with confidence and rotate the car and get good exits, because here it's all about minimum speeds and exits, and in order to do that, you need a good front end on the way into the corner.
Well, Sebastian Buemi, it's a track he knows well in terms of his Formula E career. He's won here twice, albeit when we were on the shorter layout in 2015 and also in 2017, but he hasn't taken a win in Formula E. I think it's about 5 years or something along the lines of that. It's a long time since we've seen Buemi on the top step of the podium. And well, yes, he is now in the latter stages of his Formula E career, but we have seen flashes of pace from the Swiss driver, so let's see what he's going to be able to do here this weekend, whether he can unlock some potential from that car as he rounds Anthony Noakes. Let's see whether he can find the right balance to move himself up the order, which he does, into 8th position then. So nicely done there for Buemi as he moves ahead. On board we ride here with Jake Dennis.
So let's reignite the front and we push next lap.
Dennis's first podium since Mazzano last year, yesterday. Very impressive result for him, and I'm sure a bit of a relief because last year, Katie, he was a bit all at sea, really, in his title defence. He took 1 win in Diriyah, but then just struggled with the car balance for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he was. It was all down to quali as well. He couldn't get into the duels, and yeah, he said that he was. Well, we can see it. He was incredibly frustrated last year. I think that they did have the problem that he was always complaining about the brakes, and that was like a common theme for him last year. And also getting the tyres in the window. Every time I spoke to the team, it was always about how complicated it is in Formula E to try and get them into the right spot. You can qualify well on Saturday, and then on Sunday you try and do the same thing, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's
very fine margins.
It is, yeah. When you're struggling with inconsistencies like that, it does make your life that uphill task. Dennis improves up to 3rd quickest now with just under 15 minutes left of this session. James, I'm curious to know, actually, yesterday we saw an hour's worth of practice running before qualifying. Today we've only got 40 minutes. Obviously that's 20 minutes less. Does that mean that drivers are going to be a little bit less prepared, or is it because we've had the running yesterday, it doesn't really matter so much?
I think the most important thing is that they've got 40 minutes to figure out their car balance. I'm sure a lot of the guys were not happy yesterday. They tried to make changes to the setup overnight, and they're trying to see if those changes were positive or not. Some of them might find, yes, this is a great direction, we're going to keep this setup. Some of them will be coming back in and saying, we need to go back to yesterday's settings. So 40 minutes is not a lot of time to get your car in the window and find that optimum range. And then, especially the fact that you've got 350 kilowatts of 4-wheel drive for the dual phase, you need to make sure you've got the balance both in 300 kilowatt rear-wheel drive and in the attack mode.
There's only 90 minutes to go between the end of free practice 3 and the start of qualifying later on, so not a lot of time for teams to turn around setups if something just really isn't working.
You definitely don't, you do not want to be changing your setup on a street track from practice to quali. That's one thing I can promise you. You just want to be going in with exactly what you know, trying to extract the maximum from it.
Have you driven this track in the wet?
I haven't in the wet, no. That's a good question.
Well, you were driving it yesterday.
Probably a few times in your road car.
It didn't rain yesterday.
No, I know. I was going to say, to be fair, I wonder what your lap times were, because I was thinking, to be fair, if they were quick enough, you could have ended up on the back of the grid.
Oh, thank you.
Only the back?
Yeah. What about the front, Tom?
Well, no, it's been a while, isn't it?
What an insult, James.
At least I got to drive around here. So.
I know.
It was better than winning the lottery yesterday morning.
I'm only jealous, to be fair. Big snap of overstiff from Tictum and a lock-up going into the chicane. Big lock-up. Smoke pouring off the inside front tyre there for Dan Tictum.
So here's a man that's really struggling to find it. Ah, okay, so he has got an alarm. So I think that he probably had...
Has he not activated the emergency brake? Is that... It's when you lock up, isn't that...
A software error. I mean, that lockup looked rather strange. And he's a man that was on unbelievable form yesterday, and he's struggling today to replicate that.
So there'll be a yellow flag out if Tictum can't get it going, but at the moment it looked like he was parking up at Raskas, a la Michael Schumacher. Let's wait and see whether Tictum can get back into the pit lane. Thankfully, he's not too far adrift, but there is a yellow flag out at that corner. Right on board here with Mitch Evans and see whether Tictum is able to get going. But it was quite a thump over the curb that Tictum took, and indeed his car is still parked at the Raskas corner.
Quick Control-Alt-Delete moment there, and maybe reset the car, and hopefully he can clear that alarm.
Let's go down to Saunders whilst we're waiting for this yellow flag to clear. He's with Cyril Blaze at Maserati.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, so obviously a home race for the team this weekend. Exciting to be here. Yesterday perhaps didn't go as well as you'd like to. What's on the cards for today?
Yeah, no, obviously, definitely yesterday didn't go as planned. Didn't show the level of performance that we wanted. We seem to be a bit struggling here. There's no hiding that. So we've been working hard last night. I think we find a few direction, few test items we wanted to do this morning. We seem to make a little step forward, but we need more than that. So eyes will be on qualifying. We try to learn as much in FP3 and try to qualifying better, because around Monaco it's mainly based around track position, and you need to be starting at the front to be able to have a good result.
Without pit boost today and a different style of racing, do you think this might play into the team's hands better than yesterday?
Not sure, because with our Fit Boost, it's a little bit more energy sensitivity, so he can open the strategy a little bit. Race can be a bit more volatile. So let's see. I hope so, but I think the main thing for me is focus on qualifying performance. We qualify at the front, and then we'll see what opportunity we've got in the race.
Thanks, Cyril.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cyril. Thanks, Saunders. Red flag is out with just over 10 minutes left of this session, courtesy of Dan Ticktum grinding to a halt at La Rascasse. What happened is he had a big snap of oversteer through the swimming pool chicane, and we were riding on board with him through the driver's eye. We saw the crash message come up on the dashboard, and whilst he's trying to do Control-Alt-Delete reset here to get the car back going again, clearly it triggered what looked like a fail-safe mode in the car, and he had no stopping power going into the swimming pool.
Well, it seemed extremely lucky. I mean, how he managed to have that happen in a corner where there was no wall directly in front of him. No, he was very lucky to get away with that in some respects and unlucky in others.
Team Radio?
Yeah, I've got 4.5 billion errors on my dash.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty severe fault.
Oh dear.
Doesn't sound like that's a Control-Alt-Delete fix to me.
No, that sounds like he needs some antivirus software by the looks of things. Dan Ticktum. So his car has come to a halt. He is now out of the car. That means it's an end to the Cooper Kiro driver's session. I have to say, he is a showman, Dan Ticktum, isn't he? He knows how to play up to the crowd, doesn't he? And
I hope he just goes back to his setup from yesterday, because he was absolutely flying yesterday.
Yeah, I'd love to see Ticktum of yesterday on track. And let's hope the team can get whatever has gone wrong righted, and we'll see Ticktum back on form into qualifying. But a loss of 10 minutes in this session will not be very welcome at all for him. So we'll wait and see what happens. Here is Nico Muller in the garage at the moment. He is down in 15th place. We were alluding to his problems that he had yesterday. If you've just joined us in Formula E, he had a problem with the pit boost stop. Essentially wasn't able to get the full 10% worth of energy in the stop. It's an issue essentially with the unit itself. It's now been fixed, it's been righted, it won't happen again, but ultimately it cost him because it sent everything out of whack for Nico Muller. He had a lot more energy than was expected, wasn't able to hit the right targets and so on and so forth, and he was fortunate actually because he gained a lot of time in the full course yellow yesterday, pitted at exactly the right moment, gained about 30 seconds from where he started, because if you remember, he was in the pits on the opening lap after a puncture, and then essentially, yeah, because of the issues he had in the stop, it cost him a potential chance of victory, and then he had to play rear gunner to Dennis, holding up the rest of the pack because Dennis got a 5-second time penalty.
Well, it also saved Dennis the podium, because obviously Andretti knew that they had a problem with their pit boost charger, so then he was able to go straight into the FIA charger and use the backup charger. So if that hadn't have been the case for Nico pitting earlier on, we might have seen Dennis go in earlier, and then obviously we'd have had a different podium later.
Yeah, absolutely. All be sorted for Tokyo, though, as we understand it. This is another look at Ticktum's moment, so he's already in that crash dashboard message mode.
Is that how many errors he's got? 45,056.
Surely you only take notice of the ones in red, though. Isn't that the way it works?
What a shame for Dan Ticktum, just giving his thanks to the marshals and playing up to the cameras here as well. Oh, Dan Ticktum, never change. So that's an early end to his session. I'm wondering actually if we might get a few added minutes on to the end of this one, because we've lost probably about 4 or 5 minutes as a result of that red flag.
It would shorten the time between, for the team to turn their cars around before qualifying. So I'm not sure if we'll see it, especially as we've had so much running already with the race yesterday.
I suppose on the converse, though, there isn't anything else running here this weekend, so it's not. We're just hearing confirmation actually in my ear that we're not going to have the session extended. So there we are. Wonderful.
Experience.
Exactly. Right. You've been here far more times than me, James. Green flag flies then. Session resumes with just under 7 minutes left to go. Currently, it's Cassidy fastest from this man here, Nick de Vries. As you can see, confirmation that he got his first, Mahindra's first podium finish since Mexico 2023.
Yeah, Nick, of course, champion in the Gen 2 era. So yeah, he's not one afraid of winning races. I do think we're going to see a flurry of 350 kilowatt four-wheel drive laps coming up now. Everyone's going to want to see what they're made of, and this could get rather tasty at the end of this session.
Yeah, what's it they say about form. It's temporary but class is permanent, isn't it, for
Dan Tickton?
I was Nick de Vries more likely, but you can apply that to Dan Tickton if you should so wish. Yeah, I think this is going to be an exciting end to this session, and we'll see drivers getting into attack mode. I'll be keen to see how quickly they can get the tyres up to that working window. I suppose they could use it as a bit of practice for the duels, do an outlap, go straight into attack mode, and then do a push lap. Yeah, the biggest challenge is to get the front tyres working. So rear tyres, you can use the power to light them up and really ignite the tyre. Front tyre, you have to really scrub the tyre. You have to put a lot of lateral load in. You see the drivers turning a lot the steering wheel to try to create that front temperature. Yeah, looking here then at Mitch Evans, already on that attack mode lap as he begins to try and push the limits in the Jaguar. So just over 5 minutes left of this session. Let's go down to pit lane, catch up with Dan Tickton. Saunders is down there. We saw him grinding to a halt a few minutes ago, bringing out the red flag. What does the Briton have to say?
So Dan, I think by your words, it was 1 million red lights popped up on your dash. What was the issue?
I don't know yet. They're just checking. I think it's quite serious, so I don't know yet, but it's a very possibility I might miss qualifying, so we'll see. Hopefully not, but it's what it is. I mean, it's just my luck, isn't it, when I'm on form in a weekend and everything's going well, so I'm used to it at this point.
How are you feeling right now, though, knowing the performance you had yesterday and the pace you had yesterday? If you don't have the ability to in qualifying, that's going to be a bit of a blow.
Not much I can do. Well, hopefully it'll be all right. Hopefully it's just like a couple of small parts and a few faults that they can sort of clear. But, you know, if it's rear end off, then I doubt. I mean, I don't know when qualifying is. I don't look at the timetable, but it's soon.
Well, fingers crossed we see you in quali. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Well, Dan Tickton there saying that if he fell into a barrel of shoes, he'd still come out wearing socks, given his luck. Hopefully he's able to get out into qualifying. 90 minutes or so's time until that begins. And James, you think that this is a practice for the duels now, because we've got a few minutes left of this session and drivers have gone out of the pit lane and they're attacking straight away.
Yeah, so we've been following Mitch Evans on this lap. He's gone out of the pits, straight into the attack mode. Great simulation for the duels because they've had 5 minutes in the pits. Tyres have cooled a little bit. You have to go out and nail a lap and get it done absolutely perfect. You can see Evans slightly up. Will he jump to the top of the time in front of Cassidy? He does, just. So actually found a lot of time in that last sector. So maybe his tyres were not quite working sector 1, sector 2, but sector 3, purple sector. Very impressive lap time from Mitch Evans and a lot faster than he managed yesterday.
Casey, track looking a lot faster than it did this time yesterday, actually, as well. I mean, if you consider qualifying, we were mid-126s on average in the dual stages. We're already in the mid-126s now here in practice.
Yeah, they've been running a lot on this track, obviously. Slightly different temperature to yesterday as well. I don't think there's been any more rain, though. I've not seen any more rain on the screen, so I think, as James was saying, I don't think it's going to come in for qualifying.
No, with a bit of luck, that rain will stay away. That's what the drivers will want. And the problem is, as a driver, you either want it completely dry or completely wet. Something in the middle, it's not fun.
Well, I don't know. It can be.
I think it finds out the talented guys when it's in between, those in-between situations where it's not wet or dry. It's incredibly good for driver talent.
From a commentary perspective and an audience perspective, perfect. I love it. If I was in the cockpit, maybe a little bit less so. De Vries just improves up to second quickest then with just over 2.5 minutes left of this session. What about Jake Dennis? What can he do in the Andretti as he comes to the timing line? He goes up into second fastest. A flurry of fast times coming in at the end of this session. So this has really changed the run plan for quite a few teams. With the remaining few minutes, there's Jack Crawford just behind Roger Griffiths. He's the reserve driver for Andretti. Let's have a look at the other Cooper Kiro of David Beckman going into Sandovots, and he runs off there as well. We saw Oliver Rowland doing that earlier on in the session. Not quite as smooth of a pirouette as Oliver Rowland, but nonetheless gets it righted. No harm done there for him. Just seeing that Rowland has actually come under investigation for exiting the pit lane under the red light.
Could be he was in the pits and leaving the pit lane when the red flag came out. That's the only thing that I can think of how that mistake would have been made.
Yeah, we'll have a look and see what happens. There could be a fine. I wonder whether it could be something a bit more strict than that, because obviously when the track's got a red light on it, you can't go out at all.
Nice work, mate. P2, purple sector 3. That's 300ths off Mitch, 300ths off Mitch.
Yes. Jake Dennis is riding the wave of confidence from his first podium of the season yesterday. However, you've got Evans and Cassidy up there who were nowhere yesterday, and clearly Jaguar have gone and hit the reset button overnight, worked incredibly hard and tried to turn that car around. It looks like they've done a fantastic job overnight. Yeah, it looks like they've thrown the kitchen sink and the stand mixer at it by the sounds of things, just to try and change the setup of that car, because it wasn't working for either driver in particular yesterday. Cassidy in particular really over-consumed. As we look here at Eder Mortara, he's on an absolute flyer. That's the other Mahindra. Yeah, the other Mahindra car there. I mean, they have clearly made a huge step forward this weekend.
Well, I was talking actually to the team, and they said, in particular, 350 kilowatts is where we've been focusing our efforts, trying to get the maximum out of the car. We said 300 kilowatts, we're sort of there and thereabouts. We're happy enough with the performance, but 350 in the dual stages, when we got there, we just didn't have what it took.
No, and this looks great from Edo. It's really nice to see him on form. He's clearly found a lot of confidence in the 350 kilowatt power mode, which they struggled with so much earlier on this year. We saw Edo and Nick making it to the duels, but not being able to progress. And he looks very confident. The car looks very composed in the swimming pool section.
If you remember 12 months ago, he ended this race in the barrier following a technical problem down at one of the fastest parts of the circuit into the swimming pool chicane. Yesterday wasn't a particularly...
a little bit fast into the final corner, but it looks like he's going to jump to the top of the times. No? Too much of a mistake in the last corner, I think.
Yeah, lost a bit of time in that final sector, did Mortara, but fourth quickest, third and fourth, as now the checkered flag is out for these drivers as we look at Norman Nato in the Nissan. What can he do? Sort of hero to zero stuff, really, so far this weekend at Monaco in terms of pole position a couple of weeks ago in Miami, but here in Monaco hasn't worked out so far for him. He ends the session a best of 8th quickest. His personal best sector times are coming in here for Stoffel Van Dorn in the first sector. Verline also looking pretty good in 7th place as well. He looks like he could jump up the order. Van Dorn improves to 8th quickest. What about Pascal Verline then as he rounds Anthony Noakes? Car in front of him. Shouldn't be too much for the German champion to worry about as he comes to the line. 4th fastest then for Pascal Verline. A handier lap time. Certainly not the quickest pace that we've seen from Porsche this season, but compared to this time yesterday, a bit more to smile about. However, on the other side of the garage, Antonio Felix da Costa ends the session a second off of the quickest time set by Mitch Evans, down in 16th.
Struggling a bit there with Antonio. I mean, yeah, knocked his confidence probably a bit yesterday. He was struggling with the car balance, and also that crash in the race won't have helped him.
Great end to the session there for Mitch Evans. He'll be absolutely delighted with that. Winner of this race a year ago.
Fred looks like he'll be a bit happier with 2 cars in the top 5.
It's early. We'll let him off.
Yeah, he's probably not had a coffee yet. Straight into practice this morning. But,
no, but fantastic to see them making such a big step forward. The Mahindra crew, they've clearly worked very, very hard. To see that for both cars to be up there, 2 great drivers. They could be very, very exciting to see them fighting for the victory today.
Yeah, let's see what happens as we head into qualifying. It's going to be critical around this circuit, even more so today with the lack of pit boost stops, I think, Katie.
Yeah, and especially having seen the kind of different strategies play out with attack mode yesterday and how people have chosen to split the time allowance on that. It's always the way with a double header. It's always going to be a lot tighter the next day. More laps, more data for the engineers to study overnight. Naturally, everybody is a massively competitive person and good at their job, so you would hope that things would improve overnight.
Interestingly, both Nissans down in 9th and 11th at the moment. Is that a cause for concern as we head into quali, James, or do you think not too much to worry about?
I would be a little bit concerned. Certainly from Oliver Rowland, it's a bit surprising that he didn't get a full power lap in, a clean one. So, yeah.
Let's have a look into the tunnel here for Mortara. Did he clip the wall on the outside? No? Or did he have a moment maybe into...
Bit late on the brakes into the Nouvelle chicane, so you can see him losing a little bit the rear as we saw Taylor Barnard earlier in the session. So I think he lost a little bit of time there, and then the final corner in Anthony Noakes as well. I saw him just missing the apex a little bit, and that costs you a lot on that stuff in a straight.
Yeah, you carry that mistake all the way down to the next braking zone, don't you? So... yeah, Mortara losing a bit of time at the end of that session, but nonetheless, both Mahindras inside the top 5. Hughes had a lap time deleted at the end of that session, actually, for track limits down at turn 11. That is the Nouvelle chicane, where we've seen so many drivers just pushing the edge of the envelope.
Now, normally the teams put one driver on the left and one driver on the right for these practice starts. Somehow Jaguar have got both drivers on the left. The reason for that is what you want to do as a team is you do a practice start and you learn the grip of the circuit through the car. You learn how much torque you can put down through the circuit. And by having both sides of the grid, you know where your cars qualify later, you can then put that start map in the car. So it's quite interesting to see both Jaguars on the left-hand side.
Just hearing from the team radio that Da Costa didn't want to take part in the launch, saying that he's got a noisy powertrain, so I wonder if that's contributed to his performance.
That could very well be the case. Of course, also, we touched on Oliver Rowland down in 11th. I wonder if that has anything to do with his noisy powertrain.
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, there have been a few clatterings into the barrier this weekend. Da Costa and Rowland perhaps being the most prominent of those two, as we see a bit of a battle going on up the hill into Sandoval between Nick Cassidy and the Nissan, just in front of him. It's amazing the elevation of this circuit. It really doesn't do it justice when you're looking at the TV cameras until you start riding on board. Let's get confirmation, though, of the results at the end of FP3. It is Mitch Evans who turns around his fortunes from yesterday in the Jaguar and ends up fastest of the lot, ahead of Jake Dennis and Nick de Vries. Verline in 4th place ahead of Eden Mortara, making it 2 Mahindras inside the top 5, and Nick Cassidy confirming a strong pace for Jaguar heading into day 2 here in Monaco, ahead of Max Günther. Then it is Stoffel van Dorn in Maserati MSG's home race, ahead of Norman Nato, and then Sam Bird bookending the top 10. He is the lead Neon McLaren in the Principality. Oliver Rowland down in 11th place. We'll see what that is all about after the session. He was ahead of Jake Hughes, David Beckman, Buemi, Verne and Da Costa, who, as we heard on Team Radio, had some problems with the powertrain. Taylor Barnard from pole position down to 19th in FP3. He'll be a bit concerned about that being so far off of the pace. And Dan Ticktum also coming to a stop with a technical problem, doubtful for qualifying, so he said to Saunders. We'll hope that it's only a minor problem and that the team are able to get that fixed, and we'll see the Briton out, because starting right at the back of the field, especially here in Monte Carlo, is not ideal at all for him, and would be doubly disappointing given the pace that we've seen from him so far this weekend. Well, there is Oliver Rowland in the box at the end of the session. Sorry, Norman Nato, I beg your pardon, in the box at the end of this session.
They look very similar then, doesn't
it? It did actually, yeah. I should have known from the different crash helmet designs, to be fair. But Nato, a few tenths of a second, about a tenth of a second quicker actually than his teammate Oliver Rowland at the end of that one. There is Nick de Vries just getting weighed down in the FIA garage, and David Beckman also just following him in there as well. So, James, what do you think we've learned from this free practice 3 session? Do you think these results are an indication of what we should expect in qualifying?
I think we learned that Jaguar have put in a huge amount of work overnight. They have clearly made a massive step forwards. So that's the biggest one from this session. Jake Dennis riding the wave of confidence from yesterday, continuing that into today. He looks really good, which is great prospect for the rest of his season. Yeah, I think, and Antonio Felix Costa and Oliver Rowland with the trouble with their powertrains, hopefully they're not going to have too much of an issue. Biggest one for me, Dan Ticktum. I really hope that Dan Ticktum can get his car fixed, get himself out there, regain the form that he had yesterday, and he can be in the hunt for pole position all over again.
Yeah, Ticktum now sort of on the back foot going into qualifying. I know it's only a 10-minute lost time, but if they're going to have to change, well, they will have to change parts of the car by the sound of things, then that's going to have cost him a possible opportunity. If he's even able to get out into qualifying, that remains to be seen. Let's have a look at some highlights, though, from the 3rd free practice session of the weekend here in Monte Carlo, the first on day 2 of racing, and a relatively straightforward affair in the first half of it. We did see an off-track moment for Oliver Rowland up at Sandoval, but he did a wonderful pirouette, got the car facing in the right direction. Without too much bother. And we saw other drivers making it through. We did see a bit of a problem, though, for Zane Maloney as he clattered into the back of the Envision of Robin Freitz, after Freitz was not aware that Maloney was at that part of the circuit. We understand that it is under investigation, and we'll keep you updated if there are any sanctions or penalties that will be awarded to Robin Freitz for that incident. Drivers then began to push the envelope as the pace started to ramp up towards the closing stages of the session, but this is what defined it for Dan Ticktum. Unfortunately, a snap of oversteer into the swimming pool chicane. It put a car into a crash mode, pulled up 1,000,001 different warning lights on the dashboard, according to him, and then left us with a 4-minute sprint to the end of the session.
Okay, that's us done then for the practice session. The having a small issue there as well. As you can hear, their audio's crackling as well behind us. Thanks for your company. We'll be back later on for the action from qualifying in about an hour and 10. Join us then. Bye-bye.